Okay, we are going to pick up, I think, a little bit farther on than I said. We left off the other day on page 186 with Mr. Vane, the protagonist, leading the little ones out of the city and carrying Lona's body. And the little ones have the princess, or Lilith, chained up, something. So they're going to take Lilith to Adam's house, page 189, to the house of bitterness. Mr. Vane tells us, since he's the narrator, to Adam I must take Lilith also. Notice he's going to Adam's house for one main reason. He's got a dead body, and that's where, dead bodies sleep, okay? So he says, I've also got to take Lilith. I had no power to make her repent. I had hardly a right to slay her, much less a right to let her loose in the world. Surely I scarce merited being made forever her jailer, okay? So they keep going on, and he and Lilith talk, 192, 193. She says, if you take me to Adam, he's going to kill me, etc. And on 194, he starts talking with the little ones, and he's talking about the quote-unquote Catwoman, okay? The little ones are afraid of her, even though Lona previously told him, don't be afraid of her. She won't harm you, okay? So on 194, Mr. Vane tells the little ones, when you see the woman in that cottage, you will know that she is good. You may wonder at what she does, but she will always be good. I know her better than you know me. She will not hurt you. Or if she does, and notice, he doesn't get a finish because he's interrupted. Okay? I know her better than you know me. How much time has he spent with Mara? Not as much time as he spent with the little ones. So how does he know her better than they know him? So one of them interrupts and says, so you're not sure about it, King dear. You think she may hurt us. I'm sure she will never be unkind to you, even if she does hurt you. Unkind has two meanings. Okay? Un is obviously not, but kind has two meanings. One is nice, modern English. The other is an older meaning of kind, and that is natural. Okay? Like when you ask something, what kind of thing is that? What you're asking is, what is its nature? What is its essence? So he's saying two things, I think. One, she won't be not nice to you, that is, she won't be mean to you, nor will she be unnatural to you. Okay? Well, what does he mean by that? They're silent for a while. And Odu says, I'm not afraid of being hurt a little. And then he goes on a good deal. But I don't want scratches in the dark. Will the Catwoman, one of them asks, give her, Lilith, grapes? Because what do they associate grapes with? No, not royalty. Wine. Nourishment. I mean, they suck the juice from the grapes because they've never had water, right? He says, no, she's more likely to give her scratches. But you just said she was her friend. That is also implying if she's going to be kind to us, then surely she'll be kind to her. He explains, that is just why. What? She will be her friend. How? By giving her scratches. A friend is one who gives us what we need. And the princess is sorely in need of a terrible scratching. How so? What does he mean by scratching? Guesses? Learning a lesson? Okay. You used the term the other day, tough love. What's tough love? What do we tend to want to hear from our friends?
What we want to hear.
Good things, what we want to hear. Lilith doesn't need to hear anymore what she wants to hear. What does she need to hear? The real, the truth. Okay? She needs to feel the truth. Rather than living how she's been living for thousands of years, apparently. I don't mean, what she's been eating, what she's been doing. She's been living what? Good life, which is really a lie. She's been living a lie all these years. Okay? So he says she needs a really good scratching. Have any of you read C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia? Okay? Some of you have. Do you remember Voyage of the Dawn Treader? And the character Eustace Scrubb? They visit an island. He runs off from everybody else. He sees an old, weary, decrepit dragon crawl into a cave and doesn't come out. He goes in, he finds the dragon dead, but the dragon is sitting on this big, massive hoard of gold and treasure. And he lays down on it, and he wakes up the next morning, and what has happened to him? He's transformed into a dragon. Why? Because he has dragonish tendencies. He wants that hoard for himself. So he wakes up as a dragon. And then what happens? For Eustace to be able to rejoin, quote unquote, human society. Well, you can't have dragons and mixing in with humans. As Ian Malcolm says in Jurassic Park, there's a reason there's 65 million years between T-Rexes and us. Because to T-Rexes, we're breakfast. Okay? Dragons and humans don't mix. So, in that novel, the lion Aslan has to undragon him. How does he do that? He scratches him. He tears his dragonish skin off. Is it pleasant? No, it's not. It hurts. It feels like being flayed alive. Okay? But that is Eustace's transformation. That's what MacDonald means here. Because Lewis gets the imagery from MacDonald. Okay? So, one of the boys says, I'm afraid. I'm so afraid of being afraid. My boy, there's no harm in being afraid. The only harm is in doing what fear tells you. Okay? And we hear that all the time. I mean, we heard one of our most famous presidents. We, not personally, but people who were alive then heard it. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the fireside chats, said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. If you let fear control you and you act only out of fear, then you're not acting according to your best lights, to your best reason. So, the only harm is in doing what fear tells you. Fear is not your master. Laugh in his face and he will run away. Now, he's talking about fear not literally as a person. But what Vane means is if you can look your fear in the eye and laugh at it, it'll do what? Poof. It'll disappear. Okay? The Harry Potter novels. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Right one? Yeah, right one. Harry has to confront, in the course of that novel, these beings called Dementors. What's the word I want? What happens when he sees them? They feed off happiness. He passes out. Okay? He's so affected by it. Nobody else passes out. He's the only one. Okay? But he learns a charm to overcome them. In one of the charms that he learns, this one doesn't necessarily overcome the Dementors, but he learns a charm that overcomes what's called a boggart, okay? Which is a shape-shifting kind of creature. And the boggart will take the shape of your greatest fear, right? Well, the spell you use to overcome a boggart is called the ridiculous charm. And what it is when the boggart takes the shape of the thing you fear the most, you use the spell, you say ridiculous, and you put something on that form that makes it funny. So, for example, one of the characters is most afraid of Professor Snape. He's just this rotten, foul person. Okay? So, when he sees the boggart's going to take the shape of Professor Snape. His professor tells him, all right, I understand you're afraid of Snape. So, I want you to picture your grandmother's clothes on that professor. Because what's that going to do to that image of that scary, mean professor? Cross-dressing professor? Okay, that in and of itself is funny. But he's wearing a vulture hat and these old dowdy dress and stuff. So he immediately turns him from an object of fear to an object of ridicule. That's exactly what is being said here. If you can ridicule your fear, what? You're not afraid of it anymore. Okay? This is one of the reasons, by the way, when countries go to war with other countries, what do they sometimes, not as much anymore as happened 40, 50 longer years ago, what does the media sometimes do to their enemies? Paint them badly. Make them look ridiculous. Make them look stupid. Make them look foolish. Make them look less than human. Not as much to fear then. Also makes them easier to kill. If they're not human, kill them with wanton abandon. So, they go on and, Mr. Vane says, you're not going to see her. Her face is covered. She has no face. Well, we're kind of back to the faceless skeletons, but she does have a face. Okay? But he's hearkening back to that idea of people growing into faces. No, he says, she has a very beautiful face. I saw it once. It's as beautiful as Lona's. Then why does she hide it? He says, I think I know. She has some good reason for it, but he doesn't state what that reason is. Don't call her the Catwoman, though. He makes clear. Okay? What are we to call her? Lady Mara. What does Mara mean? Bitterness. Bitterness. Okay? So, they take Lilith to Mara, and one of the girls asked her, will you hurt her very much? And she says, yes, I'm afraid I must. I fear she will, page 196, I fear Lilith, is going to make me, what? Hurt her. Why? What will Lilith not do? Open her hand. All Lilith needs to do to quote-unquote stop the pain is open her hand. And it's her left hand, notice. Okay? Anybody know what the word for left is in Latin? Sinistre, from which we get sinister. So all you lefties, you're sinister. There's something bad about the left, so to speak. Okay? So, Odu asks, are you going to scratch her very deep? Don't make the red juice, meaning blood, come. She picks him up, that is Lady Mara, picks up Odu, turns her back to the rest, to everybody else, right? All the other little ones. And she holds him up and takes the veil down from her face. So he's the only one who can see it. As if his face had been a mirror, I saw in it what he saw. For one moment he stared, his little mouth open. Then a divine wonder arose in his countenance and swiftly changed to intense delight. For a minute he gazed entranced, then she set him down. Yet a moment he stood looking up at her, lost in contemplation, then ran to us with the face of a prophet that knows a bliss he cannot tell. The face of a prophet that knows a bliss he cannot tell. I think MacDonald/Vane has somebody in mind. Moses. What happens to Moses when he goes up on Mount Sinai and is up there for 40 days and then comes back down?
People are having a party.
Okay. The Israelites are having a party. worshiping false gods, that Aaron is made out of gold and stuff. What else? What about Moses? Moses says, let me see you. God says, no man can see my face and live, but I'll put you in the rock and you can see my backside. How is Moses different when he comes down? Watch the Ten Commandments movie. You get it, his face is glowing. And it's not like somebody's got a big old, mag flashlight shining on him. It's glowing from the inside. Yeah, really freaked everybody out. How much? They had to put a veil over his face because they couldn't look at him. Okay? He's a prophet. So now the little boy has seen this face. Okay, is this face, is Mara, quote unquote, God? No. Might she be symbolic of something? Yes.
In the book of Ruth, in the Bible, Naomi actually attempts to change her name to Mara.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Mara, by the way, is the name of, which book is it in? Exodus? Might be Exodus. It's the name of a spring. It's called the Spring of Bitterness. Okay? I want to say it's where God tells Moses, tap the rock with your staff and water will come forth. And Moses gets all pissed off at the Jews. And he takes his staff and slams it against the rock. And God says, because you didn't tap it, but you slammed it out of anger, you won't enter into paradise. That is, you won't enter into the promised land. You're going to die on this side of Jordan. Okay, so they go to Mara's house. Let's see here. I think they're actually, they're still at Mara's house. And they lay her down, Lilith kind of down on the bed or something. Her feet are towards the fireplace. Her head's away. And Mara goes and stands by Lilith's head, pages 198 and 99. I know we don't have a lot of time. And we're told, Vane sees Mara's face, and she's just got tears running down her face. Great tears running down her cheeks. She wiped them away with her robe. Her countenance grew very still. She wept no more. And she says to Lilith, will you turn away from the wicked things you have been doing so long? No answer. Asks again. No answer. She asks again. So 3 times. I will not. I will be myself and not another. You're another now. You're not yourself. Will you not be your real self? I will be what I mean in myself now. Meaning, I will be what I think is myself. I will be what I think I am, or who I think I am. If you were restored, that is, if you were your real self, would you not make what amends you could for the misery you have caused? I would do after my nature. That is, what I was created as, what I was made as. You do not know it, Mara says. You don't know what your nature is. Because, according to Mara /Vane /McDonald, what is Lilith's ultimate nature? Good. How do we know? Look at the story of creation in the book of Genesis. Every day God creates, and he finishes every day with, and it was good. Okay? Light, dark, and it was good. Light, dark, and it was good. Light, dark, it was good. There was no day where God said, damn, messed up on that one. I'll have to come back and fix it later. Okay? You do not know it. Your nature is good, and you do evil. That is, your nature is good. You're doing the opposite. So she's acting how? Not in accord with her nature. Well, I will do as myself pleases. How does she talk about herself? Notice it's capitalized. as it's somehow separate from this. So what is the self she's talking about? Every one of us has this. That is whether, hold on to that for just a second. Whether you want to, adopt McDonald's belief system is irrelevant. Every one of us has this kind of self. What is it?
Ego, egotistical.
Okay, you're really close. You said the evil inside kind of thing, ego. Put those two together, what is it? It's our perception of ourselves. We talked the other day about masks. It's the mask we create for ourselves. Okay? Unaware that it is really even a mask. You will do as the shadow overshadowing yourself inclines you. I will do what I will do. You've killed your daughter. I've killed thousands. In other words, big deal. She is my own. It's kind of like she's saying, she belongs to me. I can do with her what I want. She was never yours, as you are another's. She was never yours, just as you are not your own, he's saying. I am not another's. I am my own. My daughter's mine. Mara, okay, time's up then. Alas, your hour has come. I care not. I am what I am. I mean, she starts channeling Popeye before Popeye's even born. I am what I am. Who else said that?
Popeye.
Other than Popeye. God.
Jesus.
God said that where? On Mount Sinai. When Moses is, wandering around and he sees this light up on the mountain, he talks to his wife. She says that place is holy. He goes up there, and a voice out of the burning bush, notice the bush is burning but not consumed, says, take your shoes off, this is holy ground. Tells Moses what he's going to have Moses do, and Moses says, yeah, but they're going to want to know who sent me. In other words, they're going to need to see your resume. They need to know who you are. And how does God answer? Tell them I am sent you. And he's like, okay, I'm not going to argue with that. It's almost like he's going, I don't get you, but okay. So she uses that same language. I am my own. What does she mean? Remember the other day I talked about this word? Dependent. Okay? Hanging from. But God's the only one who doesn't hang from. He's the only one who can say, I am, if you accept, the basic terminology of God and such. She is saying, I always was. Nothing created me. Nothing brought me into being. Right? A character in John Milton's Paradise Lost, one of the fallen angels, says, I never remember a time when I wasn't. Think about that for a moment. Do any of you remember a time when you weren't? Well, of course not. Because you only remember what? Things that happened to you. But he uses this logic of, I don't remember a time when I wasn't, therefore I never wasn't. Therefore I always was, I am. And the unfallen angel kind of takes apart his logic right in front of him. So, Vane says, you're not the self you imagine. So long as I feel myself, what it pleases me to think myself, I care not. As long as I'm okay with thinking what I want about myself, I don't care what you say. I'm content to be to myself what I would. That means desire. What I desire to be. I'm happy thinking of myself as the way I am. What I choose to seem to myself makes me what I am. Now, MacDonald's writing this in the 1890s. This is a description of 21st century, psychoses. Of people who say, it doesn't matter what other people say. It's what I think of myself that's what's most important. My own thought makes me. My own thought of myself is me. He said, no, somebody else made you and can compel you to see what you have made yourself. What does that mean? Somebody else made you and can do what? Hold a mirror up. And the mirror will show what? Not what I want to see, but what I really be, what I really am. All right? He says you will not be able much longer to look to yourself anything but what he sees you. In other words, a time is coming when you're going to see yourself as he sees you. How does she really appear? Is she drop dead gorgeous as she appears? No. She has even less skin on her than those rattling bones in that carriage. Remember what she looks like when he first meets her? When he finds her? Nearly dead. Hardly any skin left at all. That's the real her. Okay? So, they go back and forth. No one ever made me. I defy that power to unmake me from a free woman. What does she mean? What is she asking for from this point kind of on? She essentially challenges God to do something. What is it? Unmake me. I mean, she comes right out and says, let's see here. No, it's later. No one has ever made me. I defy that power to unmake me from a free woman. You are a slave. I defy you. You may be able to torture me. I do not know. This is page 200. But you shall not compel me to anything against my will. He says, or she, Mara says, that compulsion would be without value. In other words, you have to do this yourself. That light that Mara refers to, Lilith says, shall not enter me. I hate it. Be gone. Okay? Sorry, you gotta suffer, but I'll be free. Meaning, okay, maybe I'll suffer, but I will still be me. It's like the old, what was it, Frank Sinatra song. I gotta be me. Coupled with, I'll do it my way. Those two songs together, okay, are Lilith. She alone is free who would make free. She loves not freedom who would enslave. So, Lilith lies down. Mara takes her hand from the head of the princess, takes 2 steps back, bottom of 200. Then, Mr. Vane turns to the hearth. It's glowing, and he sees a worm thing come out of the fire, crawl across the floor, go up to Lilith. Mara stands motionless. The thing crawls onto the bony bare foot, makes its way until it reaches her bosom, and it disappears in the folds. Her face lay stonily calm, the eyelids closed, and then she kind of starts to twitch a little bit. And we're told, Mara, mother of sorrow, stepped between, drew aside the closed edges of the robe, and no serpent was there. In other words, where'd the worm go? Inside her. The creature had passed in by the center of the black spot, remember, because she has a black spot on her side, and was piercing through the joints and marrow to the thoughts and intents of the heart. The princess gave one writhing, contorted shudder, and I knew the worm was in her secret chamber. Then Mara says she is seeing herself. Psalm 51 reads, okay, this is a psalm David wrote after committing adultery with Bathsheba and having her husband killed. Okay? So he's committed adultery and he kills a man by having him sent to the hottest part of the war. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according to the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Okay? So I'm covered with problems. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. Notice David here is asking for this to happen. Lilith isn't. Okay? For I acknowledge my transgressions. Lilith hasn't done that. And my sin is ever before me. What does that mean? It's like it's right here wherever he goes. He sees that mirror. Okay? He goes on. Against thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified, etc., etc. Okay? Behold, thou desirest truth, this is verse 6, in the inward parts. Well, where is that? Deep in here. Lilith won't look at the truth. She won't see herself as she is. And in the hidden part, thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Well, what's wisdom? If the fool says in his heart, there is no God, as Psalms say, I think the first Psalm says, then the opposite of that is wisdom. The wise person says, there is God, and he ain't me. So, purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Notice the agency here. David is saying, you've got to do it. He's not saying, okay, hold on, God. Well, let me go take a shower. Let me go wash myself. Okay? Make me to hear joy and gladness. Notice that make, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins and blot out all mine iniquities. Cast me not away from thy presence. Restore unto me, this is 12, the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. Uphold, lift me up. Okay? Mara, she is seeing herself. In other words, she is experiencing this. Now, there's a book I used to teach in this class a long time ago, which I don't do anymore. The Sword of Shannara. Anybody read that before? Terry Brooks. Okay? And the reason I taught that is only one. Because it's a ripoff of the Lord of the Rings. I mean, he pretty much takes the whole story of the Lord of the Rings, puts it in another world. But he makes one very cool twist. The sword of the title, the Sword of Shannara, is not a weapon that you can use to mow down armies, which is what everybody thinks it is at the beginning. The person who gets the sword has got to be able to hold it. That's it. All you got to do is be able to hold it. Here's the kicker. When you hold the sword, it shows you yourself as you really are. And the description we get of the character holding it, he sees himself in everything he's done in his life. And we're told all the people he has slighted, all the people he has overlooked, all the people he's been a rotten bastard to. And he almost lets go. Why? It's a hard thing to see. He has difficulty accepting that. Okay? So, the horror in her face made me tremble lest her eyes should open, etc., etc. So Mara says, you can't go to her. Why? She's not here anymore. She is far away from us in the hell of her self-consciousness. Think of that word. Self-consciousness means what? Consciousness of self. Now, she is seeing the real Lilith, not the image she kept talking about, not the seeming that she desired herself to be. She sees at last, top of 202, she sees at last the good she is not, the evil she is. Okay? And in tandem with that, the good she has not done and the evil she has done. She talked about, I've killed thousands. Well, I think at this moment, those faces are coming up in front of her. And she's seeing every one of them. It'd be like Joe Stalin having to sit down at a table and have 60 million Russians, individual Russian faces, pop up and say, "Hi, you killed me"? How long would that take? Her torment is that she is what she is. Don't worry, however, she's not forsaken. Just wait and watch. Okay? Lilith wakes up, kind of. Will you change your way? Why did he make me such? Such what? She's saying, why did he make me the way I am? Well, how was she made? Notice, she wasn't made from Adam's rib. Okay? She is a glorious being, and she sees herself really for the first time, and she's just dumbfounded. I would have made myself oh so different. I am glad it was he that made me and not I myself. Why? Because if she had made herself, she would have been what? Less than what she is. So, Mara says, you can be remade. I will not be remade. He's not going to change you. He's going to do what? He's going to make you what you really are. You'll be restored. You'll be made perfect. Okay? So, skipping a bunch. They go to Adam's house, and she lays down on the bed. Page, because I know we've only got a few minutes left. Pages 213 and 214. And what must she do before she can sleep? She has to open her hand. But she can't, right? She says, I'm trying with all my... and her hand kind of goes... The fingers move just a little. She says, I can't. So what does Adam have to do? He goes and gets, and I'm trying to find the page. He goes and gets the great... There it is, page 219. He goes and gets this big old sword. Lilith says, bring it, Adam. I love that. Bring it on, Cut me off this hand that I may sleep. Why? Because it's an echo of Christ. Better is it to what? Enter into paradise one-handed than to have both hands go down to hell. In other words, if your hand offend thee, Christ says, cut it off. If your eye offends thee, pluck it out. Okay? Well, her hand offends her, but she can't cut it off. Notice again, somebody else has got to do this. He draws out the blade, flashes like a pale blue northern streamer, the hand plops off. Okay? So, Mr. Vane takes the hand, he goes and plants it in the desert where he hears the loudest sound of water, and what happens? Big old spring erupts. Okay? So he goes off with Lona. We're going to get to the very end here. He goes off to Lona, leading her, and they make their way. If you have a version with this cover, they make their way here. The city, what? Ronald Reagan used to talk about it all the time. The early settlers, the Puritans talked about it. The shining city set on a hill. It's the New Jerusalem. This is heaven. They make their way, remember that we get the description, they go up by the flowing water that comes down from the center of the city, and then they get to where the source of the water is, and it's just like this big globe, and they make their way into that, and what happens to Mr. Vane? Where does he end up? Back home. So was it all a dream? Or was it an experience like Dante describes in the Divine Comedy, designed for a purpose? And if it was, what was that purpose? In other words, the last extra credit question. What's McDonald's point? Is it finding yourself? What do you mean by finding yourself?
Your true, who you are. Like you were talking about your true self, your soul, or how God made you naturally.
Okay. Is it that?
Mm-hmm.
About salvation.
How so?
Like, they have to sleep to give up their worldly bodies and wake up to...
Okay, so what does it mean to sleep? Close?
Like, to, lay down your life down here.
Okay. To deny yourself?
To
To take up your death to self kind of a thing?
or to accept,
reborn, maybe?
yeah, or whatever they're telling you, I guess, or to accept the beliefs that are in front of you, I guess.
Okay. So is it all about there? Doesn't it also have something to do with here?
I thought it was to die to yourself and to be able to open your eyes and see what's here and what's going on around us.
Which isn't that what Tolkien talked about in the fairy story essay about recovery? Okay. I mean, that's partly at least what he's talking about. But what else? I mean, dying to self, seeing, what's around you, the whole thing about belief and everything, isn't part of it at least. And I'm not saying that there is a quote-unquote single meaning, because the allegory and the symbolism in this is so rich. You can't just say, oh, well, here it is, and nail it. Isn't part of it about how to live so that one may really live when one's dead? In other words, how to live here so that you can live after death. Well, how does one live here? Louder? Love? What do we see Lilith express any love anywhere? No. Okay. Who do we see express love? We see Mara, we see Adam, we see Eve. We see Mr. Vane finally. He kind of, opens his eyes. Why? Because he stops being Mr. Vane. He stops thinking only of himself. And he starts thinking of others. Okay? And in thinking of others, he's doing what? One of you used it. He is dying to self. Why? So that the real self can live later. Okay, now this is just the first novel that we're doing in this class. All the others aren't like this. Okay, in fact, you're going to see Susan Cooper's novel is almost the opposite, because her thought system that is portrayed in her novel is that there is an ever continual battle between good versus evil, or as she puts it, light versus dark. One side never wins. It's always going on. This is in essence what's called dualism. It's the mentality behind Star Wars. You've got the good part of the Force, the light side, and you have the dark side of the Force. Notice, they tend to be in what? Balance. It's only when the Force gets off balance that what? The Empire rises, or the Jedi rise, kind of a thing. So we're going to see kind of some of this through a lot of these. But the next book we read, The Hobbit, it's hard to find this. In fact, I would say, don't look for it. It's not there. The Hobbit's just a little, adventure. Let's go off and find gold and storm a dragon's mountain and that's it. And we'll talk about some of the deeper stuff when we get to the end of it. All right, Smaug. Have a good weekend. I imagine you'll say, thank God we're done with the topic. Oh, it's kind of supposed to.
Every time I try to finish it. That's it.
I did stop that, right? No. I didn't.